Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this very special series of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. I'm your host, Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing at Crexi, and this is the Women of Influence series, delivering next-level insights and expertise live from GlobeSt's Multifamily Fall Event. And today, we are thrilled to sit down with Kitty Wallace, Vice Chair at Colliers. A little about our guest. In her role, Kitty spearheads the investment sales of multifamily properties, including land development, condominium conversions, student housing, affordable properties, and unique assets across the Western United States, emphasizing Southern California. Throughout her career, she has closed over 800 multifamily transactions, totaling over $3 billion. She's a trusted partner, known for her negotiation skills, strong industry relationships, exceptional client service, and diligent work ethic. Kitty's success has earned her multiple achievements within Colliers. She is their #1 internationally ranked multifamily broker and has been awarded the Colliers Everest Award every year since joining the firm in 2010. Congratulations. That's very impressive. Recognized as a multifamily expert with an innovative mindset by the media, Kitty is a regular contributor to publications such as the LA Times, Los Angeles Business Journal, Commercial Observer, and Multi-Housing News. Her insights are highly sought after, and she often serves as a panelist or moderator at commercial real estate conferences like GlobeSt's Multifamily Event. She's actively involved in the industry, serving on USC Lusk Center for Real Estate's board and the National Multifamily Housing Council. She's committed to giving back through mentorship of ULI's Young Leaders Program and volunteers on the board of Upward Bound House, which not only keeps her well-informed, but also inspires and connects her with the next generation of leaders in the industry. Kitty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. So happy to learn more about you, about your experience in multifamily, what trends you see, all that good stuff. But before we get into it, I'd love to know a little bit more about you, where you're from, how you got into commercial real estate, and what your story is.
So I graduated from USC. I grew up in Northern California, and I graduated from USC, and I was a real estate finance entrepreneur major at USC. And at the time, everybody wanted to get into investment banking or commercial real estate. Both intrigued me, but I went down the path of investment banking. And when I was doing that, my father had passed away. So I went home to Northern California to live with my mother, and I had postponed the job 6 months, thinking that I would get back in that industry. Previously, during the summers, it was a little easier during those days. Now everybody has these very serious internships every summer.
Sure.
At the time, instead, I was a lifeguard at
Nice.
a golf country club.
Very important.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
And at USC, I worked in the Keck Business Center. I worked at the frozen yogurt store. I was a Budweiser beer rep. I did a bunch of very fun type jobs. But I promised I wouldn't go back to be a lifeguard yet again. To everybody who was there, I said, when I graduate, I'm going to get a real job. So I took a summer job at Nordstrom just selling shoes during the half-yearly sale, which was very fun. Yeah. The first day of the event, they called my name the next morning as the #1 salesperson in the Walnut Creek store.
Wow.
No one really knew who I was, but the Nordstroms came and found me. By the way, day 2 on the job, I spent my entire day refixing all the shoes because I sold ladies the wrong shoe sizes. I mismatched them. Yeah, I was running marathons at the time. I had a lot of energy and stamina, and I ran around. People needed help. I was like, no problem, we'll help them. So day 2, I figured out how to solve the problems.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, I got promoted 11 times in 7 years, and I was the youngest women's merchandise manager ever, and the second female merchandise manager in the shoe division ever. But then when I wanted to get married to my husband, I was working 6 days a week, 18 hours a day, traveling, and I was using my HP calculator to total up, purchase and sale agreements, which was not really what I had wanted to do. So I diverted and changed back and started interviewing in a bunch of different jobs. So I interviewed across basically all the commercial real estate industry and along the investment banking industry, and really found Sperry Van Ness at the time, which was, when I asked people, because when I took my first job, I went to an on-campus interview. They flew me to New York. They put me up at the Ritz-Carlton.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah. And it all sounded fun. I just took my first interview, and I took the job, and I was like, this was great. This time I thought, okay, I'm going to take some time. I left Nordstrom and spent like 3 months interviewing. And I asked people, if you didn't work where you work, where would you work? What would you do? I did a bunch of half days on the job, thinking in trading where I thought I wanted to be, which was not what I ended up. And I ended up really in what was a great fit. I worked at Sperry Van Ness, which was, at the time, they were largest in Southern California in retail and multifamily. They were very customer service oriented, but they were an institutional type name that everybody could feel good about themselves, that we could represent. So we did that. My first year in the job, I was Rookie of the Year. My second year in the job, I was the number 2 producer, number 1 multifamily producer. And for my entire 10 years there, I was the number 2 producer every year. But I was the number 1 overall. So every year it'd be a different number 1 producer.
Yeah.
But
There's
I was
that
always,
one person you're competing with.
I was Avis. We worked harder, but we never made number 1 there. Yeah. But I was rolling number 1 because things would move up and down.
Yes.
And then there were some things that went on at Sperry Van Ness, and they had bifurcated back down to a different arrangement than what I had signed up for. So I went looking and hunted down and found Colliers, which I really loved, because it was a similar scenario. We're the 3rd largest commercial brokerage firm internationally, but they have a customer service bent. So we have a box, but if I need to grade that box a little bit on the area, as long as I'm not crossing over that line because there's a good reason to make that happen, that's what we do. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah.
And I run a team of 9. I'm, one of the things I pride myself on is we really enjoy taking care of our clients. I look at myself as always on the other side. If I were the other person on every deal, I revisit my deal and what could we have done better? And if I were on the other side, what would they wanted me to have done better on either side? And we try to make it a win-win situation. So when you're in this business 25 years, you can go look back and, most of those clients, in fact, I believe all of those clients would still want to do business with us at this point. So that's my goal, is that you want to have the end of a transaction to say, if I had to buy or sell a building again, I would want that to be with Kitty and with Colliers, and the experience that we received is one that they want to have happen again. So that's what our team does. We do that by just creating, market knowledge, because this is what we do all day, every day.
Yep.
So we, dig in, and we are opportunistic. We find creative solutions. Outside of even just commercial real estate, we kind of read about what's going on in the global world. We're out there talking and working with people, and we've got good systems in place to execute and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we, my clients are people that we enjoy working with, and I feel fortunate that, in this industry, especially when you're in Los Angeles right now, when you have things like a Prop 33 on the market, that, we are creating housing. It's a service that we're providing that is very much needed. It's very much needed in LA, and the press that we're getting is not as great as it should be. I joke all the time. I'm on the board at USC, and I would love them to put someone behind me with a camera and
follow you around.
Follow me around, because it's like, look, I'm in buildings, and we're hiring people, right? You're inside, and there's contractors who are constructing these buildings from ground up. We're providing housing and roofs over heads. We're taking care of these residents, and instead we're sometimes getting sandblasted in the news versus patted on the back for doing a good job. So I take no offense to that. I just keep my head down and do my job, but awareness in some of the things that we do. And besides that, all the other things that we do on the nonprofit side and support in the communities to help improve them and improve the lives of our residents is important.
I love it. So much to take away from everything you said. Number 1 is, it sounds like you've always had a knack for sales, big time. I'm curious to get a little bit more into, what do you think it is about your personality that makes you so, because it sounds like from the very beginning, you're very focused on customer experience. You have the energy, like you said, very high energy, running marathons. And that's carried you through, it sounds like, your whole career. You very much are focused on what is the customer's experience. And then also, what's the bigger picture and where that experience fits, especially in the world of multifamily. Housing is so important.
I think that came from my family. And we were brought up to make the world a better place and to leave the world better than what you were at. And, to treat everybody, the gentleman who parks your car, the gentleman who, takes care of your house, as well as you would treat somebody who, is going to pay you your paycheck, or the President of the United States who may show up in your doorstep. And if you treat everybody those ways, it comes back to you tenfold, right? So people ask me sometimes, well, what did you learn? What are your sales techniques? I'm like, I learned no sales techniques. I didn't go to a sales class. I never did any sales. I went to school USC. I got good test scores, and I have a lot of fun. But I just try to do the right things for the right reasons at all times.
I love that.
And I do that for other people, and it works. And people usually appreciate that. And sometimes we're not always right, but I always find out if you're wrong or you mess up, it's like you got to admit it right away, apologize for it, and find a solution for it, and work 10 times harder to solve the problem. I mean, you have a good vision, and you know what? Luckily, I love what I'm doing, so I do this kind of 7 days a week, but it's all for fun. That I have good solutions for a lot of times, but sometimes you screw it up, and you just have to admit it. And I think that's where a lot of people put their people want to know in advance. It's just communication is important. It's easy to communicate. Life is great. Less easy to communicate when life is not so great.
Sure.
And those aren't. And I didn't learn any of this from any class that I took. I just learned that because that's how I would want to be treated if I were on the other side of that shoe.
Right. It's all about respect.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make sure we get into the multifamily portion because we are at the Multifamily Fall Event with GlobeSt. So you're seeing all kinds of deals going on in Southern California and throughout California, West Coast. What are the most interesting trends happening right now? I know there's a lot of legislation that either was just passed or is coming up. Prop 33 you mentioned is a big one. This will air after the election. So, it's kind of looking ahead. What are the long tail trends that you find most interesting that you think our listeners should be aware of and understand?
Well, I think the market moves, right? We're in now, basically, for me, my fourth cycle of seeing what goes on. And every time we see the cycle, some of the trends are the same. Some trends get accelerated, but there's always a movement of money, and you follow the money, right? And if you look back 4 years ago, when kind of at the start of COVID, capital left the state of California for Texas, New York, not Texas, they left California and New York. So my 25 years of doing business up until that time, or 21, New York, California, Boston, Chicago, DC were top 5 metros. COVID comes, those metros get shut down, and those were bottom 5 markets. And the top markets became Nashville, Texas, Florida. What we've now seen is some of those people who left there are coming back because you come there, then they have double-digit rent increases. It's a lot easier to build in those pockets than it is here. So when you see population growth and rent growth, smart money goes there and they start building. We're then in Southern California, locked up, can't raise rents, lots of legislative issues. So they were having heyday over that direction, but then they built a lot. We have high barriers to enter, so we didn't have some building. A lot of that capital is now coming back to California for basis plays. And reasons. And then the buyer profile is changing and editing we are seeing throughout that time period. So normally larger projects would go to institutional investors. It's a lot right now of private investors because we have some legislation going on that is not favorable or concerning. And if you look historically, markets that are highly, they have high legislation, it's like Boston, New York, California, those markets are historically great markets, right? Right now, our legislation has been too aggressive and focused maybe on some of the wrong things. So like a Prop 33, where the reality is, yes, we have, in California, we have 6 of the top 10 markets for highest rent growth, lowest affordability, but it's also a great place to live, right? Our jobs are growing. There's reasons to be in the state of California, and that's why people want to be here. But the answer isn't adding rent control. The answer is creating more housing. So find ways to build more housing. And if you can build more housing, that legislation that they're talking about should be worried about getting rid of the crime, getting rid of the homelessness, creating education for all so that we can raise the bar up in all of these levels. So I think everybody's well-intentioned as they're making these laws. What they're doing with the well-intentioned, however, is it's not coming out correctly to get the results that we want to have.
Sure.
So
it's a very complicated issue.
It's a complicated issue. So, I think right now it's a basis play to buy newer construction below replacement cost, right? And when you do things like this and you have a ULA, right, you can't build more, right? So now the 5-story beautiful building over 2 stories of subterranean parking that we were building regularly and providing, beautiful housing, you can't build that. So instead of building that, like I have this project that we were selling, it was, north of 300 units, it's getting re-entitled to build 128 townhomes. So we're having less housing because the cost to construct has come up, the cost of insurance has come up. So our costs have risen. And so people are reducing the spend that they're going to do on these other items, or they're buying below replacement cost. So I think it's an exceptional buying opportunity. We're just going to see a lot of transactions, and what's happened over the past 4 years and what will continue to happen is the buyer pool is moving quickly. Like every time the 10-year gets under 400, there's another buyer pool. If the rates are low, it's a different buyer pool. The buyers have moved like nobody's business, and you have to just be on your toes and ready to pivot at all times.
What I hear is there's a lot of capital on the sideline ready to go because this is just a really strong market. It has been for a really long time. So I want to be mindful of our time because we have a lot more conference to get to. But if you could leave, our listeners, whether it's investors, maybe younger brokers, whatever, with one piece of advice, specifically when dealing in the multifamily sector, what would you want them to take away from listening to this?
I don't know, but from listening to this, but if I'm it depends what they're doing in the multifamily sector. I mean, if you're a buyer of multifamily sector, you buy good real estate, right? In good locations, and that you feel comfortable with. I think that the only people who've gotten in trouble if you're buying like in California, people who are over levered or had an aggressive business plan, and it works in those markets when it all happens. But if when it doesn't, it doesn't. For brokers getting into it, you got to keep your head down. It's being an expert, right? You have to bring value to the table. Like every time I pick up the phone and talk to a client, there's a purpose to call that client, and there's it's to add some kind of knowledge that may or may not have had. And ideally, like every day I want to give a little knowledge. There's a Stan Ross. He was a USC, one of my great mentors from USC. And his answer was always, you want to give a tidbit of knowledge every day and take back a tidbit of knowledge every day. And when I make a phone call, it's not a cold call to just, hey, what's in it for me? I want to get a paycheck. Because I don't really care about getting it. The goal has to be, what is it that they need on that side? How can I fulfill what their needs are on that side? And, whether that's knowledge that I just sold the building next door, I just bought the building next door, or here's what's really going on Prop 33, and we need to come together as a community and fund this so that we can make sure that we educate the population on what we need to do correctly. Those are the types of things that people need to think about when you're making that call, because people are busy. And if you're going to pick up the phone and take an answer, you want to answer it and know that the person on the other side was thoughtful in the reason that they were calling you.
Totally. Again, it's all about respect, and, putting yourself in their shoes. How can you help them? Kitty, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate you being here and sharing your insights with us. Where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch with you or reach out after listening to this?
Oh, well, I've got, you can find us at kittywallacesteam.com. My cell phone's 310-892-6434. Office is 622-1900.
Amazing.
Or kitty.wallace@colliers.com.
Love it. Thank you.
And we have a LinkedIn. Actually, I don't have a personal LinkedIn, but we have a team LinkedIn.
Kitty Wallace on LinkedIn.
Kitty Wallace team on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, do not miss the next one. Visit Crexi.com/podcast and sign up to get the next one delivered straight to your inbox. You can also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to see all of our videos there. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much.